Hello and welcome to the first edition of Journalist Hangout this week. I'm Ayodele Uzubaku. It's the first day of the Ramadan fasts, and here is wishing our viewers, our Muslim viewers particularly, Ramadan Kareem. Today on the program, Arewa youths urge President Buhari to sack service chiefs as bandits Boko Haram run riot in the north. Court dismisses Kogi Assembly recommendation for removal of Chief Judge, Registrar, and later on the show, residents of Okobo want only road leading to their community completed. I'll be hanging out with Babajide Kolade Otitoju, Gani Kaide Balogun, and Cheta Nwaze. So if you're ready, let the hangout start now. Well, desperate times, they say, call for desperate measures. It appears criminal elements like Boko Haram, insurgents, and bandits and kidnappers are becoming more desperate in visiting terror on the land, especially the northeast and the northwest. To counter this, some youths from the northern part of Nigeria want President Muhammadu Buhari to take desperate actions. They want him to fire his service chiefs and inject fresh vigor into the fight against insecurity. President of Arewa Youth Consultative Forum, Yerima Shetima, said the escalation of violence can only be tamed when the new service chiefs with fresh ideas are appointed. Will the president heed to this call? Bajide, it's another bloody weekend in Nigeria, another bloody weekend. Killings, kidnappings, persist. Let's start from Boko Haram attack in troops in Magumeri, Borno State. What's really going on?
The attack on our troops have not stopped, and especially attacks by the Mama Nur faction, which is the faction of Boko Haram that Islamic State supports, has over time inflicted serious casualties on the army. And whenever they attack our troops, it's usually to steal our weapons. There are some category of weapons in the arsenal of the Nigerian troops that Boko Haram is always looking for. For example, we have the DHSK. DHSK is the anti-aircraft gun that the Russians supplied us. Every time they launch an attack on an army base, that's something they want to steal. Because their biggest weapon is the anti-aircraft gun. You can imagine using what is meant to bring down jets on human beings. That's why Boko Haram attacks are usually devastating, because they use maximum force, what the army calls heavy force. That's what they use. The anti-aircraft guns, when you use the anti-aircraft gun on a human being, you see that person's body will be shattered totally. You know, it's just like firing a rocket-propelled grenade at a human being, because rocket-propelled grenades are tank busters. They are used to disable tanks. They are used to destroy tanks. But Boko Haram fires it directly at individuals. They fired it at army shelters, like those small camps that the army builds. They fire anti-aircraft guns at them, fire rocket-propelled grenades at them. So they also like to steal our night vision goggles. Once they attack an army base, they are looking for
the night vision goggles.
Yes, the night vision goggles, because they like to launch attack in the night. That's their favorite period. If you see some of the videos of Boko Haram attacks, most of those attacks, they usually attack around 7 p.m., sometimes 10 p.m. Like when they launched the attack on Malam Fatori and killed Colonel Abu Ali, it was around 10 p.m. So they like night attacks, because it enables them to catch the opponent unawares. So, and then we have, because they like to use gun trucks, so they go for our Scorpion gun truck and the Buffalo 4x4 vehicle. These are some of the best that we have, and they are usually targeted by Boko Haram. So their goal is not simply to kill, but to loot our weapons, because every time these attacks happen and the army reports weapons casualty, they are referring to the weapons that they lost to the enemy.
Okay. GKB, how can we stop these killings in the light of revelations made by Babajide?
Well, we've said it on this program many times. First is to change the leadership. That's the first step. All the ideas that the Burata administration must have had in solving the problem of insurgency obviously had failed. And it's time to get fresh blood, fresh hands to try their luck. Because remember that when they were brought on board, they promised an 18-month interregnum to solve the problem. It was after the 18 months they now came back to ask for the $1 billion ammunition money. And that has been done about 1.5 years ago. So everything they've asked for as head of the army has been provided. Yet we've had reverses in the last 5-6 months. Sometimes
I'm not sure they've released that money.
All of them.
Up to now.
So apart from the Air Force, that's really putting in what we can call a real firepower. The army has been stuck in such a way that they are not fighting a defensive war. They're supposed to be routing out the bandits and the insurgents. But now they seem to be the targets for these people to take the ammunition, raid the armory, raid the arsenal, and get stuff away from them. Second step, of course, is what we've discussed there as well. It's about getting the ammunition to the roots of those who are really fighting the war. Enough talk about, enough media spin on what is happening. We have to start telling Nigerians the truth so that we know what we are truly against. Because the way we are going and we keep underreporting casualties, we'll get to a point where people will not believe that we're in the middle of a serious war. And that, to me, is key to getting this solved. Because right now, by telling us X is the number of people killed, and you and I know that XYZ is the actual number, we underreport casualties, and thereby undermine the level of urgency that we need to put down.
Now, to Cheta, do you think our agencies are simply overwhelmed from what you've seen so far?
Of course, they're overwhelmed, and I think part of the problem with this whole thing is the fact that even the youths who are now calling on the president to fire the service chiefs are calling on him a bit too late. The horse has left the stable. We're closing the barn after the horse has left. There's something very important that Uncle GKB said just now. He said that our troops are overwhelmed. You'll have a situation where we have active military deployments in at least 32 states, probably 33 now. That's one. Yet, incidents still happen. And we're making the mistake of focusing only on Boko Haram. When we have, so let's start with the north. Northern Nigeria is full of ungoverned spaces, large tracts of land that are basically ungoverned. Then you have the economic problem, because it's something that we need to understand. To a large extent, this thing is an economic problem. These are people who have had nothing to do for years, and they have suddenly found a way to make ends meet, if you were to look at it that way. Take, as an example, the kidnap of the UBEC chairman last week. Within a day, 60 million was raised and paid. That's
60 million.
That's what you have done by doing that is you have given incentive to other people to do the same thing. So it should not surprise anybody.
That's the fastest way to raise cash. 60 million.
60 million, and this is untraced cash because
with minimum physical
tax paid.
Yeah, it's untraced cash because it's not a bank transfer. It is cash. Then you have the issue of the fact that our elites, quite unfortunately, have not been able to think things through. So take the Kaduna-Abuja road, which is of all the major roads in the country at this point in time, is the unsafest. What people simply did was that they moved from using the road to using the rail, without thinking to solve the problem on the road. It's indicative of the kind of ship we have run for a very long time in this country. That rather than solving problems, what we do is we kick the can down the road. Last week, a VVIP was on that train, Abuja to Kaduna. We had a military helicopter escorting the train. Why? What is the police doing? What are we doing with respect to? Remember that all of these are internal Nigerian problems. So they're not even military problems. It's a problem meant for the police. And if the police is failing to solve this, that we are now having to call on the military, and the military is not able to solve it, that we're calling on us, we're asking for the president to sack the service chiefs. It gives you an idea of how deep the problem is.
Babajide, now let's talk about bandits and kidnapping in the northeast now. Bafara's house was attacked earlier last week.
That was in the northwest.
Northwest, sorry. A few days earlier, it was Buhari's in-laws was kidnapped, and we're not even talking about Katsina State. Katsina State is worrisome, but I understand the plight of the governor of Katsina State, Right Honorable Aminu Bello Masari. He cannot be seen to be rocking the boat, coming to the press, complaining every time. But I know one-on-one, he would have been telling Mr. President, Katsina State is almost under siege.
Yes, but you said it publicly that his state was not safe. If you have no less than 6 local governments in your state that are not safe, especially local governments contiguous to Kaduna, the Brinengwari area, and Zamfara, those local governments are not safe, and that's why you are having increased activity of bandits in Katsina State. Now, there is no week that bandits do not strike in Katsina. What has made it worse for Katsina is, Katsina came up with the idea of amnesty for these bandits. And for a long time, we saw peace. At least no attack by bandits and all that. But if you are trying to solve the problem and you come up with the idea of amnesty, and the people, the states around you do not have any means by which they are trying to stop the attacks. Once those guys are running riot in those states around you, they are going to come into your state. That's what has happened. So as they are facing the heat from the Air Force, especially in Zamfara, all of those local governments in Katsina, like Kankara, like Damusa, Faskari, bandits are coming in, Safana, coming in from there to kill people. We said it before that, look, these attacks on these bandits must be simultaneous. If you are leaving bandits in Brinengwari, which is one of their main bases, you are leaving them to run riot and focusing on Zamfara, because yes, so much noise about Zamfara. Well, bandits are roaming free in Brinengwari. So from Brinengwari, they will come into Sabua local government in Katsina, because they share the land. So they will come in and start attacking people. That is the problem that we are facing in Katsina. And then in Sokoto, there are at least 4 local governments now, including Kogi, where during the election there was a serious battle, especially during the rerun. Kogi now has a good proportion of bandits operating freely. And Tureta and Isa, that is the local government of Bafarawa. Bafarawa sometime last week launched a foundation in Abuja, and he said with his foundation is prepared to help the government of the day to defeat armed banditry. Less than 24 hours after he made that pledge, they went to his hometown. Yes, they've been going to Isa, the local government headquarters, but they had never struck inside Bafarawa, the hometown of Atahiru. So they went there and seized his uncle and killed 3 people. That same, in Isa local government, the day before, they had kidnapped about 8 persons. So now we are seeing banditry spread along, in the northwest, because it's effectively now happening in Sokoto, in Katsina, in parts of Kaduna, in Zamfara. So it's a big problem. And when you look at the statistics that the police released, you see that
Which were understated.
we are hemorrhaging deaths. It's the significance of it that is even the issue. Because when you
If
look
they're
at the
giving
number of
1,000.
people, I'm not even, I don't expect them to even tell me that this is the number of people dead, the accurate number, because even the army never ever admits setbacks. So, but what we are saying is, you see that Northwest is high up there in terms of kidnapping, in terms of even murder now. So the whole of the area appears like we have lost complete control of, look at even the train that Jonathan came up with the idea of Kaduna Abuja rail for poor people. But it is the money back
VIP.
VIP that are using it.
The tickets now, you can hardly find it.
Not only are they using it, now even the rail is not, to them, is not safe. They are now using an helicopter. The helicopter, once the train leaves, there will be an helicopter overhead, accompanying it, like F-16s accompanying the American president when he's moving around the country. So an helicopter has to still accompany the train right from Abuja to Kaduna. That tells you how, and the video is there for all to see, that tells you how unsafe we have become. Well, for me, what bothers me the most is seeing Boko Haram appearing even to win the propaganda side of the war, posting grisly pictures of murdered soldiers and all that. Nothing demoralizes not just troops, but even Nigerians than that.
Now, GKB, do you agree with Arewa youths that it's time? Let's say President Buhari is saying first 4 years that he did, maybe after May 29, these service chiefs would naturally go. But some people are saying that I can't be too sure.
And nobody can be certain. Don't forget that when I was about to leave for the US, the story we handled was that of cabinet reshuffle. People
I remember.
The next 1 week, now it's been 2.5 years, and the ministers are still there. So when it comes to Buhari and taking timely decisions, some of us are not on the same page. But having said that, it helps that every group that has a voice are coming up to raise this issue. Because we've buried our head in the sand for so long that we don't even know what sunshine looks like anymore. And we are getting to a point where not only northern youths, everybody, every concerned Nigerian must speak up, whether you're a beneficiary of this government or not. Because Nigeria is in the middle of a war. Don't forget, the north is 70% of our land mass and 65% of our population. Imagine the number of losses that will suffer as a country with this kind of statistics coming out of the northeast and the northwest. Don't also forget that they are trickling down to the southeast and the southwest. And those spaces are so small compared to the space they have to play with now. That's going to affect everybody sooner or later. So the job, I think, is to ensure that every Nigerian of conscience raise their voice in support of finding solutions to this thing before it snowballed into a full-time war.
Cheta, why do you think President Buhari has been reluctant to let service chiefs go? Why? Can you advise him what to do? Because, okay, we've changed the Inspector General of Police, yes, but these service chiefs, a lot of people have been talking about that it's time to change strategy.
Well, I'm tempted to say that he doesn't care. And the reason I approach it from that angle is take a look at his cabinet as an example. Some of the ministers have had very horrendous shifts, but they all finished the tenure, as it were. It took him, 60 odd days to let go of Kemi Adeosun after the scandal broke around her NYSC certificate. Adebayo Shitu has a similar scandal. He's still there. The fact of the matter is that had there not been a lot of pressure on the matter of the former Inspector General of Police, I suspect he still would have been there. So the president is on a very different wavelength from the rest of us in that respect. The note that the service chiefs, their tenures were supposed to have expired quite a while ago. The chief of defense staff as far back as October, because he had reached the maximum length of time that's
renewed.
Not even renewal.
That's okay.
Length of service. Okay. We now have people who are more than 40 years in service, and they're still service chiefs. So, unfortunately, the president is on a completely different wavelength, and he made a major faux pas yesterday when someone asked him about the police inspector general, and his response was, oh, he's losing weight, which means he's walking. You don't joke with such a matter. It's deadly serious. And a reshuffle is something, that's why in the first instance I said we are closing the barn after the horse has bolted. Because right now it's such that even if they reshuffle them, I don't see new people getting a handle on the matter for a while. And in that while, it's people's lives that will be going. So there are so many things that are contiguous on this. As people are dying, people are being killed, people are moving. Because when areas are declared unsafe, people move. So we now have a huge problem of internally displaced people. We have a lot of informal camps around the country. We have some refugees, because we have quite a number of people who have crossed the border. So the difference between a refugee and an IDP is a refugee is somebody who has crossed the border. We have Nigerian refugees in Niger and in Cameroon.
In Chad.
And we are not even looking at the larger geopolitical picture. ISIS has been defeated in the Middle East. They need somewhere to call home. Where's the next logical place? Somewhere between Libya and Nigeria. It's one of those places. We need to do our scenario planning to make sure that we are not caught on our wares.
Okay, let me quickly pick this call. Mukhtar is calling us from Kano. Thank you for joining us, Mukhtar.
Yeah, how are you doing, gentlemen? How are you doing?
Very well. Thank you for hanging out with us, Mukhtar.
Let me just make some little contributions to what you are discussing.
All right, go ahead.
You see, it is true that it is time for Mr. President to sack all the service chiefs, having reached their mandatory 35 years of service. And not only them, the Minister of Defense, the Minister of the Interior, Inspector General of Police, who is now acting, Special Advisor on Security, they are all part of the people that are going to be sacked because they are not doing anything. Consider Dan Ali from Zamfara. People are being killed in Zamfara. He is from Zamfara State, and he has never made a statement that will convince people that he's up and doing. These are the kind of ministers that we don't want in the second tenure of Mr. President. We should be serious. We're all Nigerians. We care for our lives. There is no good governance, and people are suffering and are being killed and are being raped. Mr. President is doing anything. Why? Please, you are our mouth speakers. Tell them that they should stop doing all these things. We want peace in our country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mukhtar. Jide, finally on this, now, do you agree that service chiefs should go?
Well, what I will agree to is that at least one of the service chiefs could be retained and promoted to
CDS.
To the rank of CDS.
That's the chief of air staff.
Yes, I'm not even going to suggest someone to him, so that it doesn't look like I'm interested in who becomes. But the truth is, you can keep one of them, at least for continuity,
sake.
sake. and then bring in fresh.
Because if you talk to the military guys, they will tell you that civilians, we don't understand the intricacies of, letting all of them to go, allowing them.
No, it's always happened. It's not like, even
not
during
science.
military regime, Babangida will let service chiefs go, bring in new ones. So who is that person who will tell me that it's such a bad thing to let service chiefs go when they've done 4 years? Go check our history.
There are rules.
Service chiefs don't just stay in their positions in perpetuity. And another thing is that it is the pride of every class, of every course, in any year,
To have service chiefs.
to produce a chief of army staff or a chief of air staff. Now, we've had a situation in which they've had 4 years.
One class.
No, 4 years, no class, because every year,
A class retire.
a class.
Basically,
So-
3 classes have been eased
Wiped
out.
out.
Been able to, you see, and for them, it is not something that motivates, because they want to go back and say, oh, our course produce so person, our course producer of air staff, producer of army staff. It's something, it's a problem that even within the army, within the armed forces, they are not particularly happy about. And you have, like the chief of naval staff, for example, he behaves like he's even disinterested.
Ibas.
Yes. How often do you see him as active enough? No. It's clear that for some of them, they are even tired. The body language suggests it. The chief of naval staff is even reluctant to promote his own people. There are more, the Navy has more personnel than the Air Force. But you find the Air Force chief
Officers.
promoting more men than the chief of naval staff. How do you explain that? When they have far more people in the Navy than in the Air Force. So this is we are not saying that, oh, let all of them go. If you are reluctant to let all of them go, then pick one of them who you think stood out and make him a service, the CDS. Obasanjo did that a number of times.
Many times, yeah.
We've seen even Babangida too, who promote. So we cannot, when you have this kind of, even in football, people change coaches and the club will be re-energized. Look at Southampton. They were going to be relegated and they changed their coach. Look at Leicester City. They were going to be relegated, but you see the same Leicester City now beating Arsenal City. You see, a club that was almost dead the other day. So this is the
I
thing.
think it's an Arsenal.
It can be the security architecture can be rejuvenated by bringing in fresh blood with fresh ideas. Let us even see. We can, for example, the manner in which we are prosecuting this war has not changed from the first day. And
Okay.
we are not achieving results.
DKB, your final take on this?
We have to find a solution one way or the other. My prayer is that the solution does not find us. That would be dangerous, because by then it will be too late.
Chetawanse.
It's an economic problem, largely. We need to sort that out. Unemployment is way too high in the country. And as long as we have that problem, this will remain a problem. Secondly, we need to improve on intelligence gathering. It's clear that we are seeing failures of intelligence all over the place in this particular matter. We've not been able to identify the real problem, and so we can't identify real solutions.
When we return, court dismisses Kogi Assembly recommendation for the removal of the state chief judge and registrar. Stay with us. It's still Journalist Hangouts. We'll be right back after this breather. Welcome back. If you're still joining us, this is Journalist Hangouts, and somebody's just telling me that the bandits are even moving southwest now, that a trailer blocked Elisha Ife Road yesterday evening, and a professor of OAU Tech was actually kidnapped, and it's a very, very serious time.
Up till now, the in-law of the president has not been released.
In-law to the ADC.
He's in-law to both the president and the ADC.
Yeah.
So
That's nepotism at its best.
the box stops the table of Mr.
He's
President.
married to the ADC is married to his daughter.
Okay.
Whereas the president is related. I mean, the guy is related to the president, is an in-law to the president through the president's sister.
I'm sure I've met that.
So he's an in-law to both the president and
all right, the wheels of justice turned slowly, but grind exceedingly fine. After indefinite adjournment of ruling of the face-off between the Kogi State Executive and judicial arms of government in April over sudden withdrawal of policemen from the court, justice has finally prevailed over impunity. Last week, the State High Court, sitting in Kotonkafi, dismissed recommendation of the State House of Assembly for the removal of the State Chief Judge, Justice Nasir Ajana, and the Registrar, Yaya Adamu, for gross misconduct. In his ruling, the presiding judge, Justice Alaba Omolaye Ajileye, nullified the April 2nd resolution of the House as illegal, hence cannot stand. But will this quench the fire raging among the three arms of government in that state, that's Kogi State, the confluent state? Babajide, what's the implication of this judgment? Tell us.
Well, it shows clearly, it affirms the separation of powers as enshrined in our Constitution. An arm of government cannot take it upon itself to be a judge over judicial matters. For example, this is similar to what, remember in Ekiti in 2006, when the House decided to suspend the chief judge of the state. Of course, the NJC affirmed that removal of the CJ was null and void. And remember Justice Elelu, Raliat Elelu of Kwara State, Bukola Saraki removed her from office. And the Supreme Court ruled that you cannot take that action. Yes, the case lasted almost 3 years, but Elelu was restored to her position and then served just a few months and left. So you are not permitted by law to take such decisions against the judiciary. Any case that you have against a judicial officer should first be taken before the NJC. This matter was taken before the NJC, but that was after they had taken this illegal action. You now move the motion, a ridiculous motion, on the floor of the House that the chief judge should be removed because you are simply out to do the bidding of the governor who has you people in his pocket. I mean, it's ridiculous. What the governor wants is a chief judge that will simply be doing his bidding. And so once Ajana made up his mind that this would not happen, they had to find a way to try to push him and the registrar out of office. Remember the case of Dino that the judge gave bail to. I mean, Dino Melaye. Yabelo was not happy about it. And there's also the same judge. Yes, it was the chief judge. The chief judge.
Yes.
So he doesn't like those cases, especially cases that he is interested in. You know, the cases that the judge, that the governor is interested in, he does not like the fact that those cases always get resolved against him. So that's why there was an House of Assembly member that was beaten up, suspended by his colleagues. And it was a judge of the Kogi State High Court too, Oluseyi, ruled that the suspension was illegal. So when about three different cases, including that of the SSG of the state, the SSG is in court with ICPC. But Yabelo wants the CJ to continue to conduct the trial in absentia. Without the SSG facing trial, coming to court. She has not appeared in court on one day. But the judge said no. She has to be physically present in court for the trial to continue. So they have disagreements, and then politics is being played. If not, how can a judge, at the point when he wanted to give ruling on a matter, while he's in his chambers writing the ruling, they will now send message that, based on order from above, that security men were being withdrawn. So I commend the courage of this judge that in spite of the nonsense that happened some weeks before, when those security men were withdrawn illegally, that he has gone ahead to give this judgment.
GKB, is it that we don't understand the concept of separation of power of what?
We do, but people like Yaya Bello did not come through the process. They are basically beneficiaries of a distortion in the system. So they tend to think.
This case is not about Yaya Bello.
I know.
It's about the House of Assembly.
That's why I'm building the background. Okay. So they tend to think that they are above the law. Like Gideon said, you look at the sequence of events that led to this. It shows clearly that somebody is not happy about the way things are going. And the person is willing, even ready, to bend the laws to ensure that his will is done. Withdrawing policemen going against judgments is a case that is peculiar to certain governors. Not that the federal government said does not disobey law, because don't get me wrong. But there are some governors who have created the habit of thinking that judgments are not meant for them. They are meant for the lower.
They are too big for the law.
And so therefore, the judgment is, in their own opinion, null and void, and they are willing to move against it. Of course, they are going to appeal this one. They are going to drag this as long as they can, but the judge has laid down the gauntlet, and I'm sure justice will be served.
Cheta, is it that the State House of Assembly don't understand the limit of their power?
This matter is one of those matters that shows the limits of this current system that we run. The truth is that in the vast majority of our states, the state houses of assembly have simply become rubber stamps for the executive. That's it. And this is showing it in a very broad light for everybody to see. It's something that we need to think through, and I think that the answer to that is in the economics once again. Most of Nigeria's problems, when you really think deeply about them, are in economics. The State House of Assembly, they don't get their money without the governor say so. So he who pays the piper dictates the tune. That's what is happening here. So we have a situation where, unfortunately, in so many states, the governor says A or jump, and the State Houses of Assembly say 10 feet or 20 feet. They don't question. That's what we are seeing here. And if we continue with this system, we will get to a situation where, and there are traces of it at federal level as well. Let's not get it. Nigerians, I would disagree with Uncle GKB here. Unfortunately, Nigerians, and I think it's because of years of military training, as it were, we don't really seem to get the concept of separation of powers, that the different branches of government, executive, legislature, and judiciary, are separate and co-equal. And it all comes down to the fundamentals. We copy the constitution of another country, almost fully, just change a few things here and there, without thinking of our own cultural proclivities here. So you take Yoruba culture as an example. The Kabiyesi had a council that was there to act as a check on his power. But here we are trying to run something where somebody thinks he has absolute power. The federal government is guilty of picking and choosing which judgments to obey. So the state governments are beginning to do the same thing. The head of the fish starts to rot from the fish starts to rot from the head. So it's what we are saying is that Yaya Bello simply lacks the tact to do it in an elegant way, unlike some of his other brother governors. But it's a symptom that is being repeated all over the country, in different parts of the country and in different manifestations. One of the things that we need to do is to find a way to decouple payments for the state houses of assembly from going through the governor. Once that happens, even the judiciary, we need to decouple their payments. Everybody should really be autonomous, and then people will begin to know that
really is a point for me, because the disagreement and the withholding of the subvention of the Kogi State judiciary coincided with the time that bill was granted.
Exactly.
So the same month he began to, and he withheld their subvention for 10 months.
That's another fact.
During this
it was 4
time,
days after.
Yeah,
Let me quickly attend to Funke is calling us from Ado-Ekiti. Thank you for joining us, Funke.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening, Funke.
Okay, hello, Mr. Prophet Babajide. I'm from Ekiti.
Really?
I know you are from Ekiti.
Yes, thank you, my fellow Ekiti woman.
I'm very happy to speak to you. I've been calling this line for almost 2 years now.
Thank God.
Congratulations.
I like your program, the presenter. More grace to your elbow.
Thank you.
The only thing I want to contribute to is the former one about the security. Even if they change the old chiefs, as long as the Judas are still in the system there, nothing will change. That's my own take on that matter. Okay.
Thank you, man.
Thank you, Funke, for keeping the shots. So, Julie, you were saying something before.
Yes, I said because when Chita talked about the need for full autonomy, not autonomy just by name. If the judiciary is to be truly independent, their money should come to them directly. Their money shouldn't come to them through the executive. The executive should have no reason to withhold the subvention of the judiciary. Look at the way Amechitu behaved some years back when he decided to lock the courts. And he did it for so long.
I think up to a year.
So how can someone behave like that?
We were going to Bayelsa.
So governors now see themselves in the image of God, that they can now do just the way some of our pastors behave, that they can now do what they like. You can't do that. It's a democracy, and it is clear that the three arms of government are supposed to operate at the same level, concurrent powers. So you can't have a situation in which the executive thinks that the laws are simply made for it and that it can misbehave at will. No. And that's why I commend the judgment. Look at what this judge said here. I want to read a portion of his judgment. Where he was describing what they did. Okay. In the light of the foregoing, okay, let me just read his conclusion. I've come to the irresistible conclusion that the resolution of the Kogi State House of Assembly passed on the floor of the Kogi State House of Assembly on 2nd April 2019, purporting to recommend the removal of Honorable Justice Nasir Ajana as the Chief Judge of Kogi State, or requiring him to step aside for gross misconduct, cannot and must not be allowed to stand, having been passed in clear violation of the orders of this court. It is accordingly hereby set aside and declared a nullity. In the same vein, the recommendation of the House of Assembly of Kogi State, embodied in the resolution of the House on 2nd April, recommending the Chief Registrar of the High Court of Justice of Kogi State, Alhaji Yahya Adamu, to the Judicial Service Commission for disciplinary action for misconduct, is hereby set aside and declared a nullity. I so order. Because there was an injunction that they should not take this kind of action. They disobeyed the injunction and went ahead to say they were recommending the removal of the CJ and the registrar. So the judge did the right thing. Maybe in future we'll have the time to look thoroughly at his judgment. But it's good for our jurisprudence. It's good for us at this time, so that we recognize that the judiciary is entitled to the powers that the Constitution has given it. So governors are not God with the small letter G. They are not gods. Even if they think that they are the image of God, they are not God. They must respect the Constitution, they must respect the Nigerian people, and they should stop behaving in a ridiculous manner.
GKB, part of what the government of Kogi State actually said was that this, the salary thing within the judiciary and the executive was that they were carrying out a general biometric verification of ghost workers and salaries, and the judiciary did not cooperate with the executive.
The judiciary is independent.
And they were the one paying the money.
No, the Chief Justice...
Paying the money, but it's not their money.
It's not their money. The man is independent. He's the head of the judiciary. It's his job. He wants to do it.
The judiciary is supposed to have its own
Precisely.
separate audit.
They have their own department. They have their own.
That's even what is called Judicial
Service Commission.
The Arewa Fact
Everything
Act
is
makes
there.
it very clear. Everybody is supposed to have its own separate. We are just irresponsible as a people. That's just it. That's what we're saying.
That excuse does not hold water.
Doesn't hold water at all. It's a ridiculous excuse.
Okay, when was the last time you heard about the town, Okpobo, in present-day River State, made famous by the patriarch, that's King Jaja? Well, the island town has existed for centuries without a single road connecting it to other communities until recently. The story changed when the state government embarked on a construction of the road linking Okpobo and Ogoliland, but it is yet to be completed. The residents are already savoring the pleasure of having a road. Want government to complete it? Let's hear from them, as captured by Babajide Kolade Otidoju. I think Jide was in that axis during the weekend.
Right now, one of the major projects that we had is the road project. It's coming all the way from Buhari up to the Andoni area, then to Nkoro, from Nkoro to Kogi. So the road is actually ongoing. And last time the governor came, he did promise this community that by end of May that will drive safe to Kogi. And if you go through that road, you see that there's a lot of improvement on that road, and work is still ongoing on that project. So we want to employ the governor that people will like that road, to finish this year based on his promise during his campaign. Before now, we go through the water, through Port Harcourt to Buhari, from Buhari to Kono, from Kono to Okpobo town. That's how we go through. Then after Kono, there's another new area through the Akwebon Azit, Ikorabasi. From Arewa to Popo here, it's about 20-25 minutes.
Okay.
From Kono to Popo, it's about 30 minutes on water. From Port Harcourt, just give it about 2 hours you're in Port Harcourt. Like if you're going through
water,
yeah, because it's 2 ways, land, water. But through this side, it's just land. Not by land now, approximately, let's say 1 hour, if there's no traffic on the road. Less than 1 hour. The time you spend so much on the road, through here now, is a bit reduced when we go through land and water.
Okay.
Yeah, so this one is more better.
Here is a place where the young youth and the vibrant Obovians which grows up in the Obos find their living. But right now we are having a difficulty because of the way seasons, and the way nature has been influencing. Right now you can see the gate is really not helping again. The road into Okpobo now has changed the nature of the business inside of Okpobo. Before it is just one way in, Kono, Arewa, Nkoro that is being fluent, but now it's all taken by the road. Now there is a lot of hunger inside the community, which you can see some boys being. Actually, you can even count numbers of persons on the way because there is no job. Actually. But if there is job, you will see people out being working for it. Actually, government needs to then help us.
You're a Johnny man.
It's always good to explore Nigeria.
So, you went to the south.
Yeah, I went to Okrika.
Okrika.
We call it, a lot of us pronounce it Okrika, but it's Okrika. Okrika. So I was there during the weekend for our researchers' wedding.
Yeah, Cyril Abako.
I returned to Port Harcourt and I saw an opportunity to go to Okpobo because before now you could only access Okpobo by water. But there is a new road has been constructed. It's not completed. So the portion that is left undone is not up to 3 kilometers.
They should complete it.
Yes, that's what you can see where they stopped. So the people are saying, help us to just complete this road. It's like you're giving people appetizer. They have to wait for the main meal. So that's what the people are saying, help us. And then, of course, the interesting thing is that those guys you saw at the riverside, they are now hungry because in the past people used to
They
come
run a
from
monopoly,
Port Harcourt.
government will-
Yes, that was the only means of coming
coming
to the town.
town.
So now,
People now come by
they're no
roads.
longer patrons, and they are complaining, and they are saying government should now come up with an empowerment scheme so that they don't take to criminality. Right there where I stood, I could see the aluminium smelter company. Because right on the water, you could see the aluminium smelter company, Okuiboku, because that place is close to Akwa Ibom. It's like a spitting distance
It
from
is
that point
just by Akwa
to
Ibom.
Akwa Ibom. You even see the village, an Akwa Ibom village, right where you are standing, at the jetty. You see the village. See, that's the aluminium smelter company. That's it, far away.
Outcome.
Outcome, it's a subject of litigation. They've abandoned it for years and all that. So it's a good thing that they have the road, but people are now the people who are into water transport business are now saying, look, government must help us to find something else that we can do, because business.
Here's
The novelty will.
Here's my take, and we don't handle change management very well in this country, quite unfortunately. The city of Venice has 400 bridges, just one city. The Mississippi River has close to 2,000 bridges, but here we politicize bridges. So I'll give an example. Asaba and Onitsha. Right now, it takes between 30 minutes to 3 hours on a bad day to go across the existing bridge.
River
Niger Bridge. But from Cable Point in Asaba to Onitsha Marine by boat, 8 minutes. Now, most of the world's trade goes by water. So if we plan properly, then you can use the roads or the bridges to transport people, but the boats, and that will solve the problem of these boys not having anything to do. The Opobo axis is a palm oil axis. So they still have to move, they move a lot of palm oil all the way from the hinterlands through Opobo, then to Okrika and the ports in Port Harcourt for exports. We can do it by boats. Constructing the roads and the bridges does not mean that we will destroy the boat trade.
I even know from experience.
When I was in Okrika, they showed me the access point to the sea. And I was told that from that access point to the sea, it takes just 4 hours by boat, big boat, to Lagos.
Yeah.
Whereas
4 hours?
Just 4 hours.
Wow.
From that access point to the sea. But by a yacht, the kind of yacht that Moneyman or Tedola and co, 1.5 hours we are in Lagos. From Okrika.
Wow.
So we need to look at other means of transport, not simply.
The truth is, we don't make use of.
We don't have to do beyond what we've done in the past, for two reasons. One is that, if you remember, Yakonde tried very hard to create a marine link throughout Lagos. Lagos is about 70% water. Most people do not realize that to get to Apapa from CMS will take 10 minutes. Today, that thing has been bastardized. From Mile 2 to Marina, it used to take 25 minutes. Nobody goes there anymore. Mainly to our inability.
I used in the year 2000. I used to work in flour mills in Apapa in the year 2000. And then when I left flour mills and moved to Gateway Bank, which was across the marina, I still used to go by ferry across from marina to eat in Apapa. 15 minutes. So my lunch break was enough. I would take 15 minutes at lunch, cross, eat in 30 minutes, then I cross back.
The traffic, the usual gridlock, you avoid it.
Alternative way through marine.
There's already coastal states.
I mean, I can imagine doing Okrika to Lagos in just 1.5 hours, or even 4 hours.
That would be fantastic.
Well, that would be a very big yacht.
Yeah, that would be
very
fantastic.
fast yacht.
Yeah.
That's done by a
4
boat.
hours. 4 hours is good.
It's not
enough.
bad.
It's not bad.
By water transport.
Compared to, do you know how many hours it takes to drive right now?
12 hours.
No.
Port Harcourt to Lagos is 12 hours.
12 hours by road. Exactly.
Chetamansi, thank you so much. I'm sure the Festus has done a lot of hunting around for you before getting you. Thank you so much for being part of this show. GKB, Osiare, Thank you so much for being.
Always a pleasure.
Ramadan Karim to him.
Ramadan Kareem. Yeah.
That's why we didn't give him water.
Oh, yes. Miyashika, have you had the
Miyashika, thank you.
No, okay. And the BQ, Babajide Kolade Otitoju, the master himself, thank you for always being there. And that's our offering today on Journalist Hangout. Join us tomorrow for another episode of the program. You can also watch Journalist Hangout on our platforms showing on the screen. We're also on YouTube, youtube.com/TVC News Nigeria. Our feedback channel is Journalist Hangout at tvcnews.tv. I'm Ayodele Ozuba. We'll see you tomorrow. God bless Nigeria and bye for now.